Hello my friends, how are you doing? Today I'm gonna show you awesome techniques on how to look at art, to understand it and learn from it for yourself. My name is Olivio, I'm a professional designer, and I want to thank all of my patrons who support me and make these videos possible. Thank you for that. Let's get started. The first thing you want to do is to select a picture of your choice and put it onto a bigger canvas. And the next step is that you use the rectangle tool down here to draw a rectangle over all of the image like that. And you want to go up here to fill, and then here where you have the choice of the color palette, set it to grayness and set the grayness to the value of 50. So you have this kind of medium gray here. And you want to put the rectangle behind the image. And this will give you a neutral background that is very important to actually see the colors, the contrasts, the values in your picture. Because as you can see, if you have this bright white background, it changes your impression of the picture. The next thing you want to do is to create a pixel layer on top of your image. And also set the image to 50%, because what we're going to do next is to draw the outlines with a pen or a brush in Affinity Photo to understand all the elements that are in here. Use your brush tool, set it to a small hard brush like 8, for example, in this kind of resolution that I'm using for this picture. Select black as the color, go to your pixel layer. Click once, then hold shift and click again. So first I will create a rectangle around my image that sets its size, and then let off the shift key so you can set a new starting point, and then hold again shift key to go from that starting point and just follow the elements in the picture. But the important part is that you do this by hand, because by doing it by hand, you really have to look at the elements. You have to reduce them by yourself in your own mind to understand what kind of elements are there in the picture. And this is very crucial because you want to understand what is going on, what this image is made of. I will speed up the video a little bit so you don't have to watch me do everything here. This is now a much simpler version of the same picture, but by reducing the picture to just these shapes, we can get some interesting information of that. Putting these pictures side by side and having drawn the shapes, you can see here now that the upper part of the picture, as you can see here, has a lot of little details going on, but the lower part doesn't have as many details. So the eye is not distracted by this kind of part down here. You can still focus on the face. At the same time, you can see here we have a huge shape on the right side of the picture, and this does create an unbalance in the picture. So if you look at the hand that's coming in from the left side, this kind of restores the balance. So that is very nice. Also, what you can see here is that you have these huge shapes of the hair that is creating kind of a frame around the face. But when you look at the left side, you see that the hair is bright and the background is also bright. So we have a second frame around the head with the dark head that gives a nice thick border between the bright background and the bright hair, so you really can focus on the face. You can see here's one frame, there's a second frame, and then also these elements down here lead up to the face very nicely without distracting from the character. So there's all pretty awesome details in here. The next thing we want to do is to desaturate the picture on the left. So we are going to create an adjustment for HSL and then just pull down the saturation to 0. So you have basically a black and white picture. It is important that you are not using the black and white adjustment, because this has different brightness values for the different kinds of colors in there. We only want to have it desaturated so we have the original brightness of the image. Good. So the next thing we're going to do is we are going to create a pixel layer under the line layer. So we have here the line layer that we have created before. So let's call this one light and dark. And what we want to do is that we're going to color pick the values from over here and paint them in here in a very rough version. If you're on your iPad, this is probably easier. If you have a little Wacom pad or something to draw with, this is also a bit easier. Otherwise, you can do it with your mouse. It really doesn't have to be very precise. So I will speed up the video again. Okay, so as you can see, we have created a black and white, very abstract version of that picture. The line helps us to really see the shapes that are in there. Another technique you can use right now is to go with the light and dark layer selected and use a little bit of blur. This gives you kind of an effect like when you squint your eyes. So this makes also the shapes a little bit better visible. And as you can see again, this gives us a lot of information, understanding of the picture. The important part here is, compared to just blurring the black and white picture on the left side, is that you have to look on every part of the picture what kind of brightness, what kind of darkness value is there, and how do they balance with each other. Where are borders, where are gradients, where are values flowing from one part to the next part, where are borders that are created by light, where are borders that are created by shadows, where are balancing things happening in the picture. Because when you're taking the picture, you want to have this kind of trained eye when you create the picture while you are shooting the picture. So for example, one thing you can see here, let's turn off the line for a second. You can see here on the left side, if you look just at that picture, that the brighter parts of the image are actually the face and the hand leading toward the image. There's only one other bright part in the image, that is the corner up here in the edge. So it's really interesting that the face is actually a bit brighter than the clothing below. So the most important part of the image is also the brightest part of the image, which means it's the most attracting part for our eyes to look at. And it is surrounded by this frame of darkness, of blackness, so it stands out even more. That's really interesting. As you can see here, we even have these kind of very light shadow lines that are going up to the face and all these kind of little things that are happening here. So this is really interesting to see that. And also now if you look at the clothing of this kind of turtleneck she's having here, this is kind of creating a pedestal where her head is sitting on, and that creates a very nice light effect where the clothing has a medium brightness, then it is getting a bit darker, and the turtleneck is going outwards with all these kind of lines beautifully pointing towards her face, leading up to it. And then we have a very thin, dark borderline, and then it's getting brighter. So we are entering now the brightest part of the picture with the face sitting on this kind of pedestal that is created by the clothing. So those are really, really interesting and cool elements. Now we can go even a step further to understand the image, and this is that we are doing basically the same thing, but this time we are going to do it with the color values. So let's create another pixel layer here. We will call this colors, and let's go through the same process. I will speed up the video again. you can see that this gives us quite a different result than the recreation in black and white. Also, I have changed the tools I'm using. For color picking, I use the color pick tool because here I can set a radius for an average value. That's pretty important. You can see here, this, for example, gives me an average of 17 by 17 pixels. Of all the colors and values that are in there, it mixes an average. So that gives me an easier way to pick these colors that are found in that area. And if we combine this, well, let's make this a little bit smaller. If we combine this with the black and white version, you can see that we get a lot different information from that kind of picture. So you can see, looking at a color version, looking at a black and white version of a picture is something completely different, makes you understand the picture in a different way. Also, the important thing here is, by picking the color, that we can understand what kind of values are actually there. You really appreciate the different kind of colors, the different kind of values you can find in there. So when you look here up on the left side, this is not just kind of gray values that are happening there. You can see this gray has a kind of green in it. This one has a little bit of blue in that. You can see in the shadows that we find here, those are not just darker versions, it's not just gray shadow on top of the original color, but you can see here we have these kind of warm tones, like a warm reddish brown tone that is here. We have these kind of warm, darker violet tones also found down here in these kind of areas. So that is pretty interesting what kind of values you find in here. For example, these values, there's not just black in here. You can see these are dark, warm, brown colors. So that's really interesting to get this kind of understanding of a picture and to see what kind of values the picture is made of. What I found very interesting here, for example, in this image, if you look down here in that hair region, and these are really small details, but you can see here that we have these very dark violet areas, then the violet gets brighter and very like saturated, nice violet. But in the background here, we have these kind of darker shadows. So we have a thin line of blue, brighter hair that is separating this darker hair from the brighter hair. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the photographer has decided to move the hair a little bit so this effect is getting there, but these small details really make a difference when you shoot the picture. And probably from this shooting they have taken a lot of pictures and then decided on this one, maybe because of these small effects that are going on in there. Also the details you see here on the lip, the different kind of brightnesses, the different kind of saturations you find to bring that out a little bit better. All that can be planned. All that can be very different if the light source is a little bit different, if the flash is set a little bit different, if the time of day is a little bit different, you get a very different picture. So just by looking at them, just by recreating them, especially your favorite pictures from the artists you like. So to reiterate that, in that version with the lines, you want to look for the composition, you want to look for how the shapes are spread out, what kind of shapes are used. Are they surrounding other shapes? Are they soft shapes? Are they hard shapes? Are they pointy? Are they creating lines that point at something? Are they isolating things? Are they balancing out shapes from one side to another side, like that? In the black and white version here on the right side, you want to look for what are the brightest areas, what are the darkest areas. Is there a good readability in the picture, even without the colors, even if in a very abstract form? Can I still understand the shapes? Do they still guide my eye in the right way? Do they create certain frames around shapes to isolate things, to highlight them? Do they guide my eye to give me a better understanding, to create a certain story in the image? Also, do they balance out things in the image? So there's this kind of things you can look for. Then in the color version, you can look what kind of impact does color have to give me a certain feeling of the image. What kind of story is created by warmer colors, by colder colors, by more saturated colors, by more muted colors, all these kind of things. Again, What kind of composition do they create? What kind of frames do they create? What kind of borders do they create? In what kind of way do they guide my eyes, give me a certain feeling, make certain things, for example, feel more dramatic, feel softer, feel more lovely, feel more intense, all these kind of things, feel fearful, all these kind of things you can create through colors. Where are they put? How are they put next to each other, in what kind of combinations, and maybe for what reason? So to understand that from these kind of versions, from these kind of things, this is how you look at art and really understand what is going on for your very own process to learn from that. I really hope this was an interesting tutorial and I can help you understand art better. And thank you for watching. Maybe subscribe if you like my videos, and see you in the next episode. Bye!